The top concerns that we are hearing these days from our mayors and local leaders, as always, are about the issues that are impacting their residents' lives and their livelihoods on a day to day basis. For at least the past 3 years, the issue of affordable housing and addressing the needs of people experiencing homelessness has been at or near the top of the list of concerns of leaders in just about every part of the country. Accelerator for America has partnered with the Drexel University NOAC Metro Finance Lab to launch a national housing crisis task force, which recently released innovative tools that cities can implement to help tackle the housing crisis in their communities. And we also recognize that housing affordability is not just a cost or a supply issue, but in many places, it also comes down to having sufficient access to quality jobs with higher wages or to equitable opportunities to start and grow small businesses that generate income and wealth. So we are also working around workforce development and small business growth strategies. There is certainly a lot in flux right at this moment in terms of how the budget reconciliation process is playing out. So I first want to note that things on the federal front may be changing by the minute as we are recording today. But we do know that directionally, we are going to see lower levels of federal investment in critical local priorities like housing and social safety net benefits. And that will absolutely put more pressure on state and local governments to identify resources to make up those gaps, which frankly is going to be really difficult, if not impossible to do. And creating gaps in one part of the system is also very likely to increase demands on other parts of the system so that the overall needs for services and supports at the local level is going to increase rather than decrease at a time when those resources are being pulled back. I'm thinking about ways that communities are already looking at continuing to advance projects utilizing alternative funds at a time when federal funding may no longer be available for those same local priorities. We have been since January, listening deeply through our Economic Opportunity Accelerators network, as well as our network of mayors, and hearing about the needs that they are experiencing on the ground in terms of actual or anticipated changes to federal funding. We have also been utilizing our network, which consists of about 100 different cities across the country that come together to learn about best practices, connect to resources, and engage with peers. We've been leveraging this network to bring in subject matter experts and lift up promising practices from across the country, focusing on additional sources of funding to invest in economic mobility priorities at the local level. This has included national and local foundations who are exploring new strategies to invest philanthropic capital, as well as examples of communities that are generating new local revenue through voter-approved ballot initiatives. We recently hosted Wendy Jackson from the Kresge Foundation and Laura Jucheski from the Scranton Area Community Foundation, who walked through several distinct and really important roles that place-based philanthropy can play on the ground in places like Detroit and Scranton and many other communities across the country. And we think that this can help provide a roadmap for other local leaders in engaging their local and national philanthropic partners in continuing to advance key economic mobility initiatives. Through Accelerator for America's network of over 100 cities across the country, we have started to see a number of examples of places that are moving forward with major initiatives and investments using state, local, and philanthropic funding, either in addition to or in lieu of federal funds. April, we featured the city of Tempe, Arizona's mayor, Corey Woods, who led his community to approving a new $38 million investment in affordable housing through a measure approved last fall, as well as Lourdes Castro Ramirez, president and CEO of the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, who is playing a key role in implementing $1.5 billion of new funding approved through Measure A to invest in housing and addressing homelessness in that community. In terms of transit and infrastructure projects, our 501c4 Accelerator for America Action was involved last year in successful ballot initiatives in Nashville, Columbus, and Phoenix, which are going to generate much needed local funding to keep investing in critical mobility infrastructure in those communities. But we can't shy away from the fact that there are also big challenges that have not yet been solved for. Tim Kelly of Chattanooga just recently received notice that the Environmental Protection Agency plans to terminate a $20 million funding award for a critical community connector and green space project that would benefit Chattanooga residents. And our network of mayors has been very, very clear that even as we talk about the role that philanthropy or local resources can play in continuing to invest in economic mobility priorities, there is no way to make up at a local level for large-scale federal funding cuts. So we must also look at how we can continue to engage those federal partners to keep investing in local needs. The topic of access to capital very much brings me back to my time at PIDC, which is Philadelphia's Economic Development Corporation, which also operates a citywide community development financial institution, or CDFI. Solving capital challenges for small businesses, development projects, and nonprofit organizations was a big part of my work life for 16 years in that organization. And now that I am part of Accelerator for America, working in or delivering resources to many different communities across the country, I can certainly say that capital to invest in the people and communities that have been left out or left behind is a big need in just about every place in our country. I would frame it not just as overall access to capital, but also as the affordability of capital and the availability of different types of capital to meet different types of needs on the ground. Examples of some of the capital gaps that we're seeing in communities across the country that we work in include pre-development and acquisition capital for small-scale developers, affordable working capital for small businesses and entrepreneurs, and creative structures like loan guarantees for sale affordable housing development, or equity-like capital for earlier stage entrepreneurs that fall outside of traditional high-growth industries like the tech sector. CDFIs will continue to play a critical role in the economic landscape of communities into the future, particularly in filling capital gaps in those places that are not able to be met by the private market or the public sector, at least on their own. Over the past 2 years, Accelerator for America has developed a number of recommendations on how local leaders and CDFIs can work together. As the chief executives of their cities, mayors in particular have a unique role to put forward bold visions for equitable small business growth or affordable housing development in their communities, and they have the ability to use their special convening power to bring together the cities or regions' philanthropic and capital ecosystem to meet those needs. Local leaders can also strategically invest public dollars to help meet critical gaps in the market and to spur large-scale philanthropic and private investment, including through CDFIs, by acting as a first mover. An exciting example of a partnership between place-based philanthropy leadership and local government is found in Atlanta's approach to affordable housing. In May of 2023, the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta and Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens announced a $200 million investment in high-quality affordable housing, prioritizing residents at the greatest risk of displacement. In announcing this major new funding, the president of the Community Foundation, Frank Fernandez, said, "In every city, the trends have been moving in the wrong direction for entirely too long, and too many people are struggling. But we have a window of time, particularly in the next 3 years, to change the trajectory in Atlanta. That is why we are moving with urgency to bring together all our partners to have an all hands on deck and make a lasting change in housing." So in that Atlanta example, the focus was on housing, but I think the opportunity for local governments, place-based philanthropy, and CDFIs to come together to invest in new ways can apply to all sorts of community needs. Local governments can consider a number of options in places where CDFIs are not already active or may not be working at a full scale. This really goes back to the role of the mayor or other local leaders in prioritizing this capital access as a key issue in their community and setting a table of partners to lay out a path forward in addressing it. In particular, place-based philanthropies like community foundations would be key partners for those mayors and local government leaders to bring in. We've identified several different ways that local governments and place-based philanthropy can come together to invest through CDFIs to meet capital needs in communities. That includes through grant funding, through loan guarantees, through direct lending, loan participation, and equity or equity-like investments, loan purchasing, and then debt remediation, including looking at options for student loan forgiveness that can unlock capital for investing in small business or home ownership. There are promising models happening in different places across the country in each of those areas that can be lifted up and replicated in other communities. One of the biggest barriers that CDFIs face is the visibility or lack thereof that they currently have, and the speed at which they can typically deliver their funding resources relative to the fintech sector and or even the traditional commercial banks. There are some CDFIs that are working to build in the benefits of a fintech model with the mission-driven approach of a CDFI. So that's a promising development. But it's really important to recognize that once a borrower, particularly those from historically disinvested communities, has had a negative experience, such as being turned down for funding or getting stuck in an untenable payment cycle, that is going to have deep and lasting consequences on not only their trust, but their community's trust in the financial sector overall. And then those local CDFIs may find that potential borrowers that could benefit from the type of funding that those organizations have to offer may not even choose to seek out the external capital that could help them to grow. Another challenge that CDFIs face is that they themselves are essentially small businesses who need resources to invest in their capacity to effectively achieve their mission and deliver the funding resources that they have to offer in the market. We often see this in the area of CDFIs not having sufficient resources to undertake outreach and engagement, which when it's done really well, is actually a pretty slow process involving trust building with partners, with intermediaries, and often rebuilding trust with the borrowers themselves. And CDFIs finally also need more access to different types of capital, and yes, including grant dollars, that allow them to have greater flexibility in meeting the needs of borrowers. There are a lot of different ways that local government staff can be educated and trained to better collaborate with CDFIs and better engage with the overall capital ecosystem in their communities. And here, I think the overall Accelerator for America playbook generally applies. So the kinds of things that we do that we have found work really well in practice with our local government leaders across the country are providing access to toolkits and best practice examples from other places that have already done this type of work successfully. Creating the opportunities for local leaders to learn directly from their peers and really get into the details of the challenges and the lessons learned in terms of what worked and what didn't. And we often find that those leaders learn a lot more when they get to talk to folks about what didn't work and what mistakes were made along the way and things that folks would do differently if they had the chance than just learning from those models of success. And then finally, we see a real need for direct technical assistance and capacity building for those local government partners by subject matter experts in this field who can really work one-on-one with those places to help turn their ideas and the things that they're inspired by other communities across the country into a reality on the ground.